Hello, everybody. This is our number 3 in our conversation series, hosted by the new magazine StoryMoss, magazine that was born in a design school for regenerating Earth, where we report stories on places, people, and permaculture. And today, the day of the full moon, the corn full moon, and the blood moon, because of the lunar eclipse, I am very happy to be in such beautiful company. I want to, before I pass it on to Megan, I want to call on all our ancestors, all living beings on the Anima Mundi, rivers, bees, and insects who are around us, and to pay our respect to them and to tell them that we are on a journey with them and for them. So thank you for tuning in, and I'm passing on to you, Megan.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. And we are so delighted to be here with you, Anne Billen and Neil Davidson. It's such an honor. And just a few days before the R3O conference, which is what gathers us together in a global online conference with confluences in different parts of the world that Neil and Anne have been um, the catalyst, might say, for developing. So, welcome. And, um, as really um, stalwarts and treasured members of the design school community, and in your own initiative that you're leading, And Now What, which is a courageous community for grappling and integrating collapse and what we're all facing, but learning and cultivating together these qualities of the Shambala Warrior, as Joanna Macy has written, of compassion and insight. So I would love to ask you to start by saying a few words, um, just starting with this question that you bring, and now what? Um, how will you be bringing this inquiry to R30, and how can the next 3 days be a generative space for this inquiry?
Mhm. Wow, big wonderful questions. Wow, Megan, thank you. Where to even start? And now what is actually the question that is the starting point of a journey. But before you get to that question, and now what, there is the facing reality of an ongoing social ecological collapse. And that is what Neil and I, the journey that we were on separately before we even met at the other end of the world without knowing each other. And we met because we were crushed by the fact that we were facing reality and doing that and feeling very lonely and very sad and very lost and not knowing and what have you. So it is that facing reality that is the starting point, actually. And the and now what is when you are at the deepest point of letting go of your old expectations and your old entitlements and your old identity, even. And you have a very open heart and a very open mind, and you are willing to let come the very important things that are going on and that are calling out for our action and our agency, then you are ready to ask the question, and now what? And that is a question that we don't want to answer alone. And that's why we are together.
And when you do lean into that individual vulnerability of showing up fully, even while hurting, you can be seen. And we saw each other. And then you can reach out to somebody who is equally hurt and equally seeking. And then you can say, oh, wow, I didn't know. I thought I was alone. Now you're no longer alone. So the couple that can form from that and the authenticity in that is critical to the deepening of the process. To try and do this alone is, as Francis Well would call it, a rough initiation. But to do it in community or with somebody that loves you and can see you for what you fully are and fully feeling is actually more of a transformational process. And I had a poem that I could have read today called Hold, written during COVID, about when one of us is sinking, the other one is holding them up, and then the other one is sinking. So the waves are big, but we're not both down at the same time. And we can depend on the other to pull us back up again. It's not always rosy. We've both got very strong minds, we've both got very strong wills, and how we learn to bring compassion and insight in ways that can challenge existing systemic assumptions is so critical to the work we do. If we keep doing what we're doing and it's not been working, it's not going to work, and we haven't got much time. There's an urgency to this work, and there's a need to let go of the absolute outcome because we can't guarantee it's going to work. And we then need to think about, if we were going to do that, how might we do that? And our connection back with R3.0 and the conferencing process is that in the conferences that we had attended in Amsterdam with friends including Kim Oostvogels from Equinox Collective, our partner here in the Confluence in Belgium, we recognized that the personal connections in the corridors and the interface around the content were just as important as the content being delivered. So it doesn't matter how brilliant the speaker is if you go off on your own and don't do anything with it. So how do you actually bring that together around what does that mean for us? And so that mechanism is so critical to the integration process. So when we recognized that last year's conference was going to be fully online, we collectively got together and said, we need to do something place-based that brings together people that want to see that content and hold them in a container long enough for integration to happen. And then when we said we were going to do that, we spoke with R3.0 about how we might do that, and that brought together the conferencing and confluencing elements. And so the confluence for us is a deepening process, but sometimes that is a little bit at odds and friction, has a creative tension with the way in which the content is delivered. And we have to create space for that, for individuals at whatever point on the journey they are at, to provide them with a safety net and support, and to be there in support as letting go becomes letting come, and the emergent process into what might we do together we can't do alone. So that's very much what we're trying to do, is hold a safe enough container to be challenged and to be held safe while you become more vulnerable and more authentic, so that we can see each other more fully and therefore interact more beautifully around priorities that may mean more to us in our local places. Yeah.
Wonderful,
This
beautiful.
wonderful woman beside me. I mean,
Yes,
I
yes,
couldn't do
I
it
can.
without her.
It's so beautiful the way you work together and support one another and complement one another. And Neil, you
We
mentioned
look pretty
having.
good on screen. It's not quite as pretty in real life.
But wait, hang on. Neil, you mentioned having one poem, but you also have another poem that you're going to end our call with. So we'll be keeping a couple of minutes for that at the end, right at the end. Um, but I love how you segued into this development of confluencing and how important that is to bring those containers where people can be physically together with one another in support of all of these really big um, topics that we're going to be grappling with in the next few days. And could you maybe say just a few words about, how people can really show up in these confluences and co-create these containers for holding what needs to be held? It's a vast question in a very compressed,
Yeah.
short space of time.
There is a bit of contention in the room as to whether I should show this, but people that see this, it's a bit blurry.
Blurry.
Let's look at the colors. The graphic will be provided, but we helped to co-develop the guidance document for confluences globally, which took our prototype from last year, and then we did some thinking about what might that look like. And we're looking at how does that model affect other people at different stages on their journey. And first of all, we have to be humble that we're not as far along the journey as, say, the Greater Takaronto region and Susan and Brian Pooper and Susan Bozak in that region. So we're not as far along that journey, but we thought it was critically important to integrate collapse awareness towards collapse acceptance and different levels of coordination from networking and information exchange through to deeper elements of how do we connect more deeply. So that was the structural scaffolding.
Yes. And next to that, there is also the inner journey, of course, that we explicitly invite into the circle. So we do a lot of circle practice. In the morning, we invite people, we do a meditation. Sometimes we do a nature meditation, and we invite people just by being and holding space, let come up what is there. And we also lead by being, just being. And then it is amazing what comes up. The third day of our last confluence from last year, it was magic. People were in tears. People were so deeply moved and changed their lives. Several people afterwards changed their life course because of that integration and because we were able to hold that. So it's a matter of explicitly making space and time for that process to happen and to steward it properly. And that's what we intend to repeat this year. So it's very important.
And just to connect that to the and now what at the end of the confluence, we don't know yet. And so we have to be open to multiple potential directions. We've just come back from an 800-person collapse camp in Germany, where they were talking about solidarity and resistance and resilience building and first aid and how to protect your Pride March and a whole bunch of other topics. And we also ran a workshop there on the alchemy of collapse awareness moving towards collapse acceptance. And so as you deepen on this journey, your priorities shift, your energies shift, the things you think are most important to do and to learn shift. And we don't know exactly where people are at coming in to our confluence. So we have to hold a space that is robust enough to scaffold what wants to be born and yet flexible enough to accept whatever is being born. Some of that will be weaving together of people that hadn't met before into, wow, we could do a project together. Some of that could be, how do we create a systems design laboratory for the future, right, for this region? Some of it could be, how do we create a knowledge commons? Some of it could be, how do we co-govern? Some of it could be, how do we challenge existing governance processes? But we can't direct that. We have to hold space for that to emerge. And so we'll be looking at some sort of trajectory beyond the confluence to help to capture those energies, regardless of what energies come up. And then we have to decide who wants to be part of that and how do we do that with them. So this is very much not a single journey or a directed journey, but a safe enough space held for us to co-design potential journeying together, and that beautiful statement in terms of Ubuntu. If you want to go far, go alone. Sorry, to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And this is a long journey. So.
Yes, exactly. We need each other to do the hard work and come together. And I think you both embody that so beautifully and in your partnership as well with each other and the inner and outer weavings and yes, this willingness to deep willingness to work with the emergence and see further into what is. It's so beautiful and so inspiring. So we really literally have just a few minutes left. So I think I'm going to invite you both to just say one last word of a minute or so, and then Neil, we would love to hear your poem, and that is how we will end our call. So thank you very, very much to you both. It's a deep honor to be with you.
Wow, what do I say to that?
Yeah.
Thank you for giving us some space to talk about our work. It's really affirming, it's heartwarming, and we are so happy that we are in the company of such wonderful people in the design school and that you people give them a platform to tell their story. So the gratitude is from our side. That's my finishing words.
And similarly, to recognize that we are an ecosystem of change makers with different roles and different niches, and not all of those roles and niches are yet even recognized. And so we need to be showing what it is we could bring if the conditions were right. And those of us that can help create conditions for others need to be creating those conditions. And so much of this is around enabling people to become fully themselves in emerging systems context. And it's really critical. It's not just resisting the fall of the old, it's being ready for the next stage of development. And it's probably with collapse going to go down, not up, in terms of current paradigm expectations. But in terms of our current economy, current societal structure going a different direction, the design elements that can be anticipated for those sorts of things need thinkers. They also need people with heart to hold the grief and the feeling that comes into that. They need integrators that can bring the head and the heart together. And they need people with hands on the ground doing things like the permaculture and the gardening and the weaving. And all of that, of course, is connected to soul in terms of how do we get that alignment between individual fractal agency and multiple scales right up to what does Earth need of me now, which is back to the Shambala Warrior. How do we come in with compassion and insight in today's world for what is coming down the line at us? And that's the power of where we're all at in this collective moment. So just honouring the design school, honouring StoryMoss for what it's doing, honouring R3.0 for what it's doing, Equinox Collective for what they're doing, and all of our potential collaborators going forward. How can we walk with you, not tell you what to do? And how can we create the space for things which are going to be more viable going forward?
Beautiful. Thank you again to you both. And let us now end with your beautiful poem, Neil.
I love the way you introduced it as a beautiful poem without having heard it yet.
I already know it's a beautiful poem because I've heard enough of your poems.
And now you've heard enough of my poems.
And they're all, no, I haven't heard it. I'll never hear enough of your poems, but.
Oh, Megan, it's nice to have at least one fan in the world. It's beautiful. So this is a beautiful little poem called Forest Whispers, and I'll add that in the report that goes out with some pictures. And it's written in Haverly Bos, which is the Haverly Forest near us here in Leuven in Belgium. And so I was feeling a bit of grief this particular day, and it was autumn. You are not your feelings, I heard the forest whisper. Yes, it's logical you feel our pain. Yes, the trees are bare. It's winter. Yes, the loggers have been through. Yes, we have lost brethren to the storms and the chainsaws. I silenced, centered, breathed, and stood still. I swear I heard the forest say, now that I have your attention, look down here. Yes, at your feet. Crouch down. See these green mosses? See the leaves from autumn being processed? See the way we harness the light? Now can you see how we will survive? Yes, I thought, I can.
Beautiful. It was beautiful. Thank you so much. And our deepest thanks to you both, and we look forward to engaging with you further at R3.0 and beyond. Okay.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Emmanuel.
Bye-bye. Thank you.